History is not always found in the ruins of palaces or the tombs of kings. Sometimes it waits in silence, in the dark, and sometimes its discovery depends on nothing more than a bored shepherd, a stray goat, and a well-aimed stone. A sound that did not belong, a sound that would echo for decades, shattering our understanding of the ancient world. What if a lost library, a time capsule from the age of prophets and messiahs, had been waiting for 2,000 years to be found? What if its texts contained the authentic words of the Bible from 1,000 years before any version we had ever known? And what if this library told the story of a mysterious and fanatical community who, on the eve of Christianity, fled the corruption of their world to prepare for the end of days in the harshest desert on earth? The story of the Dead Sea Scrolls is not just about the discovery of ancient manuscripts. It is a story of faith and fanaticism, of war and survival. It forces us to ask one of the most profound questions of history: who were the people who wrote the Bible? And by hiding these texts, what secret were they trying to tell us? This is the lowest place on earth, the Judean wilderness. For millennia, it has been a landscape of extremes, a refuge for rebels, prophets, and outcasts. To understand the secret hidden in its caves, we must first understand the world that forced it into hiding. "2,000 years ago, this land was a powder keg. Judea, the ancient homeland of the Jewish people, was suffocating under the boot of the Roman Empire. Rome was a global superpower, and its grip was absolute. It promised peace, the Pax Romana, but it was a peace bought with steel, taxes, and terror. You cannot overstate the tension. For the Jewish people, their covenant was with God, not a distant emperor who claimed to be one. Every Roman standard, every tax, every act of casual brutality was not just a political oppression, it was a profound spiritual violation. It was blasphemy. At the heart of this world was the city of Jerusalem. And at the heart of Jerusalem was the Second Temple, a marvel of the ancient world expanded by Rome's puppet king, Herod the Great. At the heart of this world was the city of Jerusalem. And at the heart of Jerusalem was the Second Temple, a marvel of the ancient world, expanded by Rome's puppet king, Herod the Great. It was the center of the Jewish universe, the dwelling place of God on earth. But its leadership, the high priests, known as the Sadducees, were wealthy aristocrats who owed their power to Rome. They managed the temple, grew rich from its commerce, and preached a message of cooperation. To many, they were collaborators. In the synagogues and villages, another group held sway: the Pharisees. They were scholars and teachers, revered for their piety and knowledge of the sacred law. They taught that holiness could be found not just in the temple, but in everyday life, in prayer and righteous living. They were the spiritual fathers of modern Judaism, and they walked a fine line, preserving their faith while avoiding open conflict with Rome. But in the shadows, a darker fervor was growing. They were known as the zealots, revolutionaries who believed that God alone was their king. For them, there could be no compromise. They preached holy war, assassination, and rebellion. They were waiting for a spark to ignite the flames of revolt. Sadducees, Pharisees, zealots, a nation at war with itself, under the shadow of an empire. But a fourth group is mentioned by ancient historians, a more mysterious sect. They are called the Essenes. Disgusted by the corruption of the temple, convinced that the world had been consumed by darkness, and that the final apocalyptic battle between good and evil was imminent, they abandoned society, They went into the wilderness to seek purity, to study scripture, and to prepare themselves to be the holy army of God in the end of days. For centuries, they were little more than a footnote in the writings of others. We never had their words, their rules, their beliefs, until a shepherd boy threw a stone. This is Qumran. When archaeologists followed the trail from the first cave, this is where it led them. The excavations, led by the Dominican father Roland de Vaux in the 1950s, unearthed the humble settlement of a deeply devout and disciplined community. The connection was undeniable. The pottery found shattered in the caves was identical in make and age to the pottery found in the ruins of Qumran. This wasn't a random collection of scrolls hidden by refugees. This was a library, hidden by the very people who lived here. They found ritual baths, or mikvat, for constant spiritual cleansing. They found the remains of a scriptorium, where scribes painstakingly copied their sacred texts. And they found a community dining hall, where members ate their meals in silence and prayer. This was the physical evidence, the undisputed fact. But who were they? The scrolls themselves give us the answer. They called themselves the community, the sons of light, and their worldview was one of stark, uncompromising dualism. They believed history was a cosmic war, and they were God's frontline soldiers. Their leader was a mysterious figure they called the Teacher of Righteousness, who had led them out of a fallen world. Their enemies were the wicked priest and the man of the lie in Jerusalem. This is where speculation begins. Most scholars believe the evidence points overwhelmingly to one group, the Essenes. The descriptions of the Essenes from ancient writers like Josephus and Pliny the Elder match the rules and theology we find in the scrolls almost perfectly. Their communal property, their strict initiation process, their obsession with purity, their settlement near the Dead Sea. The scrolls are their lost voice. The decisive moment for these people was a personal one, a choice to abandon family, property, and the world they knew, for a life of radical devotion in the desert. This was the ultimate acid test. For centuries, critics had wondered how much the Bible had been changed, edited, or corrupted over the millennia, and the Isaiah scroll delivered a stunning verdict. While there were minor variations in spelling and grammar, the text was virtually identical. It was a testament to the incredible fidelity of the scribal tradition. For 2,000 years, the oldest complete copy of a book of the Hebrew Bible was the Leningrad Codex, dating to around 1000 AD. The scroll found by Muhammad al-Dib in Cave 1 was a complete manuscript of the Book of Isaiah. It dated to 125 BCE. In one moment, the discovery bridged a gap of more than 1,000 years. This is the first category of texts found in the caves. Our oldest ever copies of the Hebrew Bible, what Christians call the Old Testament. Nearly every book is represented. These are the foundation of fact. But it's the second category of text that provides the most shocking revelations. These are the community's own secret books, their rule of law, their hymns, their prophecies. The community rule lays out the rigid hierarchical structure of their society. The War Scroll is a chillingly detailed military manual for the final apocalyptic battle, where they will fight alongside angels to annihilate the forces of darkness. These texts are a window into a fiery, zealous, and apocalyptic mindset that permeated Judea at the time, which leads to the most tantalizing area of speculation. What was the relationship between this community and the two most famous figures of the age, John the Baptist and Jesus of Nazareth? The parallels with John the Baptist are impossible to ignore. He operated in the same desert, preached a message of repentance in preparation for a coming judgment, and used water for ritual purification. He quotes the book of Isaiah, "Prepare the way of the Lord in the wilderness," the very same passage the Qumran community used to justify their exodus from Jerusalem. Was he an Essene? Probably not. He was his own man, but he was almost certainly breathing the same theological air. And what of Jesus? Some of his teachings on righteousness, his disputes with the temple authorities, and his use of terms like children of light echo language found in the scrolls. But the divergence is even more profound. The Qumran community was defined by who they excluded. They were separatists. They hated outsiders. Jesus was defined by who he included. He sought out the sinner, the outcast, the impure. In many ways, his ministry can be seen as a direct refutation of the kind of rigid, exclusive piety we find at Qumran. The decisive moment for this library was not one of high drama, but of quiet, sacred duty. A scribe sits in the scriptorium at Qumran. Outside, the political world is unraveling. Rumors of zealot uprisings and Roman reprisals filter in from the world they left behind. But inside, his world is reduced to this piece of parchment. His hand is steady. He is preserving the eternal words of God in a world that is about to go up in flames. It is an act of faith and an act of defiance. In the year 66 AD, the spark finally ignited the powder keg. The Zealots led a full-scale rebellion against Rome. The First Jewish-Roman War had begun. The Roman Emperor, Nero, dispatched his best general, Vespasian, to crush the revolt. Legion by legion, the Romans methodically reconquered the land, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. By 68 AD, their march brought them to Jericho, just miles from the settlement at Qumran. The archaeological evidence is clear. A thick layer of ash, Roman arrowheads. Qumran was attacked and destroyed by the Roman 10th Legion. This is fact. The community, the Sons of White who had been waiting for the final war, had it brought to their doorstep. But their apocalyptic vision of angelic intervention did not come to pass. They faced annihilation alone. They must have seen it coming. They were isolated, but not ignorant. They knew the Romans were getting closer, and they made a decision. Their community might be destroyed, but their sacred words, their legacy, would not be lost. This is the final desperate act of the Qumran community, the moment where history and faith collide. It's here we must speculate on their motives. Were they hiding the scrolls with the hope of returning to reclaim them after the war? Was it a sacred archive, a geniza, that could not be destroyed? Or was it a message in a bottle, cast into the ocean of time, a final testament of their beliefs, for a future generation they would never know? The decisive moment. Young and old, they run from the settlement, carrying the heavy jars up the cliffs to the labyrinth of caves. They work in shadow against the dying light of their world. Each jar placed in the darkness is an act of hope. Each sealed cave is a prayer for the future. They are not just hiding scrolls, they are burying their soul. For 19 centuries, the library remained silent in its tomb of rock. The Roman Empire rose and fell. Christianity spread across the globe. The world was remade. And then, the shattering of the jar began a new kind of war. A war for control of the past itself. The discovery could not have happened at a more turbulent time. The scrolls immediately fell into a murky world of antiquities dealers and millmen. The Bedouin, realizing their value, began to secretly explore the caves, finding more and more material. The scrolls were split up, sold piecemeal on the black market in Bethlehem. Metropolitan Samuel, unable to find a buyer, places an advertisement. It reads, "The 4 Dead Sea Scrolls, biblical manuscripts dating back to at least 200 BC, are for sale. An ideal gift to an educational or religious institution." There was a race. On one side you had scholars like Professor Eliezer Sukenik of the Hebrew University, who immediately grasped the immense significance of the scrolls for the Jewish people, and risked his life, traveling into hostile territory to acquire the first 3. On the other, you had Athanasius Samuel, the metropolitan of the Syrian Orthodox monastery of St. Mark, who bought 4 scrolls from the same dealer, having no idea what they truly were. The climax of this scramble comes in the most unlikely of places, the classified section of the Wall Street Journal, June 1st, 1954. The sale was made for $250,000. The scrolls were reunited. A national treasure had come home, but the point of no return had been reached. The discovery was now a global phenomenon. An international team of scholars was assembled to edit and publish the thousands of fragments now being recovered from the caves. And that is when the doors, once again, were closed. For decades, this small, exclusive team held the complete monopoly over the unpublished scrolls. They worked incredibly slowly. Access was denied to outside scholars, particularly Israeli scholars. Rumors began to fly. What was in the scrolls that they didn't want the public to see? Was there a smoking gun that would undermine Judaism, or worse, Christianity? A conspiracy of silence was born. The secret of the caves had been replaced by the secret of the scholars. The battle for the Dead Sea Scrolls had only just begun. The academic siege was finally broken in the 1990s. After immense public pressure, the photographic archive of all the scrolls was released, opening the field to every scholar in the world. And with the dawn of a new century came new technology. Technology like multispectral imaging, DNA analysis to sort fragments by their animal skin origin, and even artificial intelligence allows us to read the unreadable and piece together this vast 2,000-year-old jigsaw puzzle. The work that took the first generation of scholars a lifetime can now be done in years or even months. So, now that the secrets are out, what is the ultimate legacy of this buried library? How has it changed our world? First, it has revolutionized our understanding of the Bible. The scrolls are a profound confirmation of the stability of the biblical text. But they also show us it wasn't static. We find minor variations, different versions of books, like Jeremiah. It shows us the Bible wasn't a single book dropped from heaven. It was a living library of text that was fluid and evolving during this period. Before the scrolls, we tended to view ancient Judaism through the lens of the Pharisees, because they were the group that survived and became modern rabbinic Judaism. The scrolls show us that was just one slice of a much bigger, wilder, more diverse reality. It was a world teeming with different sects, different ideas about God, messiahs, and the meaning of the law. The scrolls restored a lost voice to that vibrant conversation. And finally, the scrolls provide the essential context for the birth of Christianity. They are the Dead Sea Scrolls, not the Dead Sea Gospels. They do not mention Jesus. They do not mention his followers. And yet they are fundamentally important to understanding him. They give us the vocabulary, the concepts, the theological arguments of the world into which Jesus was born. Apocalyptic expectation, arguments over purity, messianic hopes, the conflict with the temple. All of these things were in the air he breathed. The scrolls are the missing soundtrack to the Gospels. They remind us that our most sacred stories did not emerge from a vacuum, but from the messy, passionate, and desperate struggles of real human beings in a time of crisis. The journey began with the sound of a shattering jar, and it led us into the heart of a lost world. We asked what secrets this buried library held. We found the oldest copy of the Bible, a testament to its endurance. We found the private rulebook for a community of apocalyptic purists. We found the cultural and religious soil in which both modern Judaism and Christianity grew their roots. The Sons of Light hid their scrolls because they believed they were preserving eternal truth in an age of darkness. They were convinced their world was ending, but they were determined that their words would survive. They sealed them in clay and darkness, an act of faith in a future they could not imagine. It leads us to a final lingering question. A question not for the past, but for ourselves. In our own turbulent world of rapid change and profound uncertainty, what ideas, what stories, what truths do we believe are so essential, so precious, that we would go to any length to preserve them? What would be in the scrolls that we would hide in a cave today, in the desperate hope that 2,000 years from now, someone might find them and understand who we truly were?